If you're new to this channel, you may consider subscribing and hit the bell icon so that you continue to receive the updates. Please share it with all others who might benefit. Let's get started. In this video, we're going to learn how to make awesome Margherita pizzas. Now, we're still going to talk about hyperparameter tuning, but if you could learn how to make some awesome pizzas for yourself, what's the harm in that? So let's get started. In order to make a Margherita pizza, you would need some ingredients. Now, would the ingredients transform into pizza just like that? No, it never happens like this. We have to undergo a process. And what is the process? You need to set your oven to a certain temperature. You need to spread the tomato sauce evenly over the dough. You need to sprinkle the shredded mozzarella cheese over the sauce. Arrange the tomato slices on top of the cheese. Season with salt and pepper. And then you slide the pizza onto the preheated pizza stone or baking sheet in the oven. And you now bake it for about 10 to 15 minutes. How do you know 10 to 15 minutes? Well, you've learned this. You are professional chefs. You know all of this. So you wait until the crust is golden and the cheese is bubbly. It's the right time to pull out the pizza and top it with fresh basil leaves and drizzle with some olive oil before you serve it. So here's how you make a pizza. Now, would this work for everybody? How do you know this is going to be a good pizza? Maybe people would want some customizations. For example, you could give choices to your customers regarding the crust. They want a thin crust, thick crust, stuffed crust, whole wheat crust. You could give a choice of toppings. You could give some choices in terms of cheese. You could give some choices in terms of herbs and seasonings that you want to add. So overall, we are looking at something like this. We had some ingredients. They undergo a process. In the process, we also apply our learnings. For example, what temperature and for how long, when is the right time to pull out the pizza from the oven, and things like that. We also have these customizations. And then finally, we have an outcome, which is a great pizza. Now let's understand what does it have to do with machine learning. Let's look at these terms. So what are ingredients to the pizza are the data to your machine learning model. What you talk about as customizations are the hyperparameters. And eventually from a model, again, you expect an outcome. Now, how do we talk about those learnings that we already had? The temperature and the time to bake, those are called parameters. What you learn through experience from the data are called parameters. But what you can control as customizations externally are hyperparameters. So let's understand what are hyperparameters. Hyperparameters are configuration settings used to tune the training process of machine learning models. But why do we need them? The objective of using hyperparameters is to optimize the performance of a machine learning model. By adjusting hyperparameters, we can control the learning process and the complexity of the model, which can have a significant impact on its performance. Now let's go back to our pizza example and understand what could be the possibilities. So one way is that you want to come up with the best pizza and you want to experiment with various possible combinations of crust, toppings, cheese, herbs, and seasonings. So you could be trying a thin crust with red onion, olives, and extra mozzarella with fresh basil. Or you could try a stuffed crust which already has some cheese stuffed into it with fresh garlic, zucchini slices, and goat cheese. So you could experiment with all possible combinations. And based on the feedback that you receive from your customers, you may decide which combination of ingredients results into the best pizza. But you can imagine this would take a lot of time because you have to try every possible combination. And this approach where you try every possible combination to find out the best result or the best taste is the grid-based approach or the grid search approach. On the other hand, if you leave this decision to your customers or the person ordering the food, for example, you could ask them to choose one of the crusts. You could ask them to choose any 3 toppings, any one option in terms of cheese, and any number of herbs and seasonings. In this case, in a way, this process is random for you. User may have specific preferences, but in your order, you'll be receiving any random combination of these choices. This is the randomized search process of hyperparameter tuning. Now you can imagine comparing the grid option versus randomized option. In a grid option, you have to undergo the entire grid to be able to figure out what works best for you. So that's going to be exhaustive, but it is also going to be time consuming. On the other hand, randomized search option is something that's very straightforward because you don't have to worry about what a person would like or not because your customer is providing you the input. So you have to just customize as per the specific ask from the customer. Of course, in this case, randomized search is going to be faster. How do we choose between these two? When we have a relatively smaller data set, we can always go with a grid-based approach and look at the complete space. But when we have a larger data set, it may be practically next to impossible to try all possible combinations. And in those cases, you may stick to randomized search options. So this was primarily to introduce you to the idea of hyperparameter tuning and two popular approaches in hyperparameter tuning, grid-based and randomized approach. Next, we'll talk about applying grid search and randomized search approaches to solve a machine learning problem. We will be using the famous random forest algorithm, and we'll be comparing the outputs obtained from these two approaches.